Okay, so the date you're recording this, we are currently still in 2022. However, we are nearing the end of it, and I'm sounding like a reporter.
2020.
I said 2022. What the fuck? Okay, give me a just hold on with me lately. I said 2022.
Yeah, that's not even close to 20. What the fuck? Are you okay?
I guess I'm not okay.
Where the hell did that come from?
I don't know. It's end of year for us right now, and things are slowly coming to an end. And this is also the final 2 episodes that we're recording this year. However, this is relevant for the next year. So today we're talking about building a creative business that doesn't burn you out. And we prepared some, I would say, like checkpoints in a way where you can go through them and see, hey, is there something maybe you could change, or just to like check in with yourself on how you're doing, what you could change. And I don't know, I feel like start of the year is always like a good point where you can like sit down and think about your business, think about how you are doing, and see what you could change. And yeah, I'm babbling. So let's just get into it. I think that most of our listeners already know this story, that when we started our studio, we got burned out pretty fast. Like in the first 2 years, we reached a point of, yeah, I would say like really severe burnout. And we wouldn't have gotten there if we had like some kind of systems, boundaries, right pricing systems in place. And I think that today is like a good day of like going through what we could have done different, or what you maybe could do different, or like to check in, hey, are there some things that you could like take from this buffet that we're offering and implement for yourself?
Yeah, I think the most important one is setting realistic goals and having a timeline for the whole year. So something we never did initially was have like a plan for the whole year. It was just kind of like leads came in, then we took on the project, and then another lead in, then we came in and we took on that project. We basically took on everything that came our way, which also had to do with boundaries. But I think we would never have taken on those projects with those timelines had we had a plan in place. So I think planning is super important. We always talk about having a financial plan, and it should make sense for your financials as well, but it should make sense for your capacity mostly too, because especially if you're one person, there's only so much you can do in 1 year. Your time is really limited, and sometimes things can easily become too much. And the reason why a lot of freelancers never go on holiday is because they don't do this kind of planning.
Yeah, actually, there's so many times that we've heard someone say, okay, I'm taking my first holidays in 5 years.
Yeah. And for us, it took us about like 2 years to get there, which is, I feel like, not so bad. Other people take a long time to get there. There are people that never go on holiday when they're self-employed, or they'll go on holiday, but they'll take their laptop with them or something like that. By the way,
I'm not taking my
Okay,
laptop
good.
this time. I'm going on holidays soon, so we are pre-recording a bunch of episodes.
yeah, so that's something to think about. Like, when do you want to go on holiday? Plan that now. Plan that at the beginning of the year. Say, okay, I'm gonna go out, like, gonna go somewhere I've always wanted to go. I'll be out of office for 2 weeks, and then plan those 2 weeks ahead of time. Because then, if you have clients, especially clients that are with you maybe like throughout a longer period of time, you can tell them that now already. Be like, hey, by the way, I'll be away these 2 weeks and I won't be available for you.
Also for new projects, like you can already plan ahead of time that you kind of like either add a buffer in that period, or like let them know that you will be gone. Like just plan that project ahead of time in a way that you can actually take those holidays.
Yeah, and I think this like planning and having realistic goals for the year makes it easier to have things like boundaries, because when you plan your business and you plan your capacity, and then you have realistic goals, like you want to get this many projects in, and you don't want to be like, maybe your goal is to have a better work-life balance, and then some lead comes your way and you might be tempted to take it on, but then you have that goal in mind of, no, wait, I wanted to take time off, or I wanted to have a better balance between work and life. And then you say no to that project, or you maybe are able to negotiate like a different timeline for it, so it starts at a different time. But all those things are much more difficult if you don't have these plans. If you just like go about it like blindly, like we did, you just end up taking on probably everything.
Yeah, for sure, because you don't know how much money you will need for the year. You don't know how much time you will have for the year because there's just no, what you already mentioned, no planning. So how would you know?
Yeah, and it gives you security because then you won't, because I think if you go through it blindly, you also feel like you can't say no to a project because you're like, you have no like voice in your head making you feel confident about saying no. But whereas if you have these plans and you have these goals in mind, and you know, I'm going on holiday, for example, in June, and then a project comes along and it would be exactly during that time, you would be able to set that boundary because you set that as your goal for the year to take time off. And you have that in mind the whole year. So why would you suddenly change your mind? Like you probably wouldn't. Unless, I mean, obviously, if it's like a 100K project, probably should change your mind. But I mean, let's be honest, most of these projects aren't that profitable. And usually the last minute ones are especially time consuming and stressful. So it's easier to say no to those things when you have like these ideas that you've been planning the whole year. And I think it's just easier to set boundaries as well.
Okay, so we already mentioned boundaries and goals. One more thing is to like take a look at your systems if you have any in place. Like for example, we started out with the Notes app simply and having everything scattered in emails or like written it down on Post-its, if I remember correctly. And then we kind of like switched to Notion, and I set up something extremely complicated, almost no one was using. Then we switched to another one to ClickUp, and which is again, I liked it more. Like that system, I feel like helped us out in the beginning, and it was also very structured, and it was really just made for project management, which was also extremely helpful. But now we noticed again that we're actually not using it in a way that it's intended to be used.
I think it's good for time tracking and it's good for collaboration. But I feel like a lot of the times we're working on projects independently, so you don't actually need the collaboration aspect. It's good for like everything that we are delegating to other people. But it's not for me, for my personal productivity, I don't find it helpful. So I'm actually using Notes app again.
Yeah, it's extremely clunky for you alone.
Yeah.
I also don't like it. It's not easy to switch around. And I think that in a sense that was kind of like, okay, let's see, sometimes like less is more. And it actually works quite well. I'm using Notion again, but kind of like you with reminders, and the calendar was also like kind of just like finding what suits you best and not what others are using and suits them best.
I think it's really important because there's this tendency in our industry to have like, I don't know, to say like this is the standard and everybody should be using this. I think it's true for some things, like if you're a web designer and you're not using Figma, I don't know, that would be a red flag for me. But like when it comes to your own personal productivity, it doesn't really matter. You could use a notebook and a pen. It doesn't need to be like this super advanced, complex thing that you set up in Notion.
Exactly.
And you shouldn't waste your time doing all of that. Like, I feel like a lot of that stuff, we do it because we are just procrastinating doing the actual work.
Yes.
So we spend like a whole week setting up some complex Notion system just to end up not really using it the way that it's probably intended to be used.
Yeah, I think in theory it sounds really great. And in theory, I want to use it. But then the practicalities of it are just not there. It's much easier to just have the to-do somewhere listed, or to have, like, for example, what we were saying with the calendar is, for me, I have like time slots prepared now. So I have like some to-dos and I prepare them in time slots so I can see them on the calendar, how much time they will take up. In this way, I don't panic and I have the whole week in front of me. And that really helps me to see, okay, what's priority? What do I have to do really? What can be moved around? And that just really helps me have an overview of the week.
Yeah, and I think it's also important to find a system that works for you, also when it comes to your availability. So nobody's forcing you to work Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. Like, you have the freedom to choose that. And your clients might not even be available in that time. Like, for example, our clients are mostly in the US. So a lot of the times it makes sense for us to start a little later in the day because that's when you would get a response from them. And that's when meetings happen. Sometimes meetings happen in the evening. So then obviously you're going to start your day later because why should I work 9 to 8 p.m.? That makes no sense. So obviously I would start later or I'd take a break at some point during the day and then have that meeting in the evening. It's really important to like balance your time between work and life, and it's going to be probably very dependent on your clients and when they're available, but it should also be something that you control for yourself. Like I've noticed I'm just not productive in the morning, so why should I force myself to sit somewhere and not be productive? Why not just start later in the day and then have a few really productive hours? And the luxury of being self-employed is that you get to choose that. So I think developing systems in terms of like when you work and how much you work is something you should just do based on your energy and not based off of what society expects you to do. And I think that's something that a lot of people realize a lot later into their career as being self-employed.
Yeah, I think it makes sense because you copy what you know and you copy what you've seen. And we did the same in a way. I mean, not really because we were using just notes, but to be fair, when I was working at design agencies, we never really had like an elaborate design project management system. It was mostly just like, here's a project, have fun.
Yeah, and then you also you're forced to sit there from 9 to 5, which isn't realistic in terms of your creative energy levels or your in general energy levels. You're also forced sometimes to like do overtime to finish a project on time because somebody planned it badly. And those are all things that are in your control when you're self-employed. So you can control the timeline, you can control whether or not you want to tell the client it's going to be a day late because you just weren't able to finish it on time. There's no need to work 24/7. There's no need to stay up till 12 to do it. If you have good boundaries with your clients and you have good systems in place, it probably won't happen as much. And when it does happen, you'll be able to say, hey, I'm really sorry, but this is going to be delayed. And you should say that. You should never stay up till 12 or 1 in the morning finishing something. It's probably never necessary because no one's going to die.
Yeah, not in our field, no.
Yeah, the only thing that can happen in our field is that you have like a printing deadline and the printer needs it by that time to like actually finish it on time. And that's just important that you plan ahead.
Yeah, that and maybe clients that really like need a website and people cannot shop on the website. I guess those are like the biggest consequences.
Yeah, if the website isn't working, you mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but I mean, even then, I feel like, yeah, it should happen sometimes.
Yeah, of course.
And you can't like sacrifice your weekend or your evenings for a client. I just think that's unacceptable. And then obviously it's good to have boundaries so that those types of clients don't ever find you, because there are clients that will expect that from you even if you set boundaries.
Yeah, remember this one client that wrote you at midnight expecting the turnover before 9 a.m.
Yeah, and she was
great.
in the UK, so that would have been, it would have been like 10 a.m. our time, but it was still unrealistic.
Exactly.
Yeah, and we just said no because like, obviously. No one died.
Yeah.
And it wasn't actually the big deal. Most people also, when you set boundaries like that, they will totally understand that it's unrealistic. Like we recently had a client give us something, also like US time, end of day, which is for us the middle of the night. And they were like, they needed it next day, end of day our time, which meant like not even 24 hours turnaround time. And I also told them, I'm sorry, but we can't make that happen. And they were like, okay, no problem. And next time we'll make sure it's like delivered earlier. It's rarely an issue.
Yeah, I think most people, and us in the beginning especially, are scared to lose the client.
Yeah.
So that's also like understandable when you're like starting out, that you can't just like, I don't know, like you don't dare to like draw boundaries with the clients, or you're scared to, even if you think that's like really necessary. But I think that comes with experience. And once you start doing it, you will notice that most clients are okay with it.
And it also comes with attracting the right clients. I think that a lot of people, and this is another point on our list of things to like that are important when it comes to creating a sustainable business, is your pricing, which also has a lot to do with your positioning, which we can like go into now. But basically, if you're attracting clients that don't want to pay a lot, they probably don't value your work. And if they don't value your work, they also don't value your time. So those are the types of clients that are going to expect you to work like around the clock, or have a turnover time of a few hours, or next day delivery when they have like an urgent request, because they don't value you. So like, why? Of course they think you have time for them. And of course they think that you can deliver those things. How to change that would be your positioning. So if you have a lot of clients like that right now, where you feel like they want ridiculous things from you at ridiculous times, then you probably need to change your positioning.
Another thing you could do, of course, if you have been working with those clients long term, even if they aren't the best or that don't pay much, what you can do is to change your prices and to see who sticks around. Because even if those aren't your dream clients, at least get more money out of it.
Yeah, like you could try raising your prices, and then maybe the work will feel like it's worth it or more worth it.
And some will fall, like it's like kind of like when you're like cutting ties with a client. It's like one way to do it is to raise your prices and to see who sticks around, because the ones who stick around most likely do value you.
Yeah. And then why is positioning important when it comes to raising your prices? Because you can raise your prices. And I just posted something about this on LinkedIn, and someone commented, raising your prices is one thing, but finding clients that are willing to pay is another. Mm-hmm. And that's where positioning comes in. Like, obviously you can have high prices or fair prices that feel like you represent your worth, and then you feel like you don't have any clients is interested in booking you, and that's a positioning problem. So either your positioning doesn't match up, so clients come to you expecting lower prices, and then they won't book you because they'll feel like, oh, this is way out of my budget. If someone is contacting you and then they tell you the budget is way too high, then you've made a huge mistake in your positioning, because those kinds of clients, they don't even contact us anymore because they know we're too expensive for them. And that's what you want to achieve. Like, you will close doors, but you'll close doors on clients that you wouldn't want anyway. Like, you don't want to entertain them to begin with, because it just ends in, oh, this is way too much. Can you make it cheaper? Blah, blah, blah. And then they're not even willing to like cut the scope to meet your prices. It's like, it's a whole mess, and it just wastes your time. And then if you are able to like create a positioning that attracts the right clients, they'll come to you and they'll expect those prices. One, they'll expect it, and two, they probably already have a budget, and they'll just tell you, this is how much I have. What can you offer for that amount? And it's a much more like business oriented conversation about budget, and not this one side is trying to get the most out of the other side with paying as little as possible.
Yeah, it should feel like a win-win.
Yeah. And if you struggle with getting clients like that, where you feel like the price negotiation is a normal conversation and not like someone trying to exploit you, then you really need to look more into positioning and what that means. And it's a very complex topic, because I feel like pricing is almost easier, because pricing is like, there are certain like rates that are expected from freelancers versus studios, and there's like a lot of content online about it. But positioning is so individual, and it's so like, I don't know, it spans a lot of different things. Like, it has to do with how you communicate. It has to do with how your website looks. It has to do with how your portfolio is presented. It has to do with the type of work in your portfolio, the types of clients that you've worked with in the past, and are you communicating your value? Like, are clients seeing everything, like every type of content they see from you? Does that all add up to the value that then they expect to pay?
Yeah, maybe like go through your case studies and take a look if every project that you have in there serves where you want to go. Like, for example, us being a web design and development studio, probably branding projects won't really serve us because we are offering web design and development. And I feel like that should be clear from the start when someone looks at your website.
Yeah, but it's not just like the services you offer, but it's like how expensive are you going to be?
Yeah, of course. But I mean,
So-
just like one thing that one could do right now, looking at their own portfolio.
Yeah, and it's important that the projects in your portfolio represent the work that you do and also the price point. So for example, if your prices are not accessible to like single person businesses, small businesses, but you only have like small businesses in your portfolio, that's super confusing for those clients because they'll see themselves in your portfolio and they'll contact you and they'll expect like a price that is doable for them as a small business. And then you quote something much higher. Of course, they're going to be like, that's too much, and they won't book you. Or you'll end up like negotiating your price down and you're ending up working below your value. And that's where like then the resentment and the burnout comes in. So yeah, it's just really important that everything you're putting out there that has to do with your business adds up and makes sense when a client hears your price. Yeah, so that's like the positioning part, which is way more complex than I think a lot of people realize.
Yeah. It's so funny because we're pretty good at positioning our clients, but we have so much difficulties positioning ourselves.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of people just don't put a lot of effort into thinking about how they're being perceived from the client's perspective. Like, I think a lot of people put a lot of effort into their portfolio and their website, but they don't necessarily do that work that you should do before you do that, which is think about who am I talking to, who is my target group, and all that stuff. Like that stuff you do for your client, which is always like target group analysis, competitor analysis. Like that's all stuff that you should do before you're thinking about what does my logo look like? What does my branding look like? What does my website look like?
Yeah, that's like the ironic thing that we do it for our clients, but we usually don't do it for ourselves. And yeah, it's like always funny to see.
Yeah.
Another thing that we wrote down is like project planning, which I want to start off with a little story. When we started out our studio, most of our proposals just looked like, okay, website. Maybe like a little bit more like insights onto the sub pages, but that was like pretty much it. And we didn't like really scope out the functionalities, like what it will include, how many products it will have approximately. So the scope was pretty vague. So it kind of like some projects and kind of ended up like being, okay, different expectations from the client and feeling like we might have like under-delivered on their expectations just because like the scope wasn't clear, or it wasn't clear what we were building or what the deliverables are. So therefore, one thing that we learned from it, which is a huge thing, is to like really add a clear scope into it. Because once you know like the clear scope and deliverables, then you can plan the project accordingly, and both you and your client will know the exact deliverables, what to expect. And another thing that helped us a lot in terms of project planning was to add in sprints or like milestones, which are like imagine like the project broken down into pieces, and every piece is like a milestone or a sprint. And after every milestone, we get like client feedback, and we always try to get it as early as possible and as much as possible, so we don't end up with kind of like a situation where they get like a design from us that they were not expecting. So like to include them into the project as much as we can. And ever since, I feel like we didn't have any like bad surprises coming from the client side. We're being like, oh, we expected something else. And this is something that we've learned as well.
Yeah, it's important because the thing that happens if you sell this client something, they have one idea of what it is, you have another idea of what it is, you deliver something that isn't what the client expected. You sold them something and they had an expectation. So you will have a feeling of, I need to deliver their expectation. And that will usually end up in you working a lot more than you expected, and then a lot longer. And then the whole project feels like a loss, and probably is a loss when you look at like the numbers and the timeline. And that's what you want to avoid, because those kinds of mistakes are what lead to projects overlapping, projects taking too long for the budget. you ending up working 24/7 and still not having enough money, or like you have enough money but you're not making profit. So if you have the feeling like you're working 24/7 but you don't have anything to show for it, then it's probably has to do with things like that, like bad planning, bad like expectation management, and setting those expectations at the beginning, being really clear and transparent about what you're offering and what the client's going to get, because it just leads to so many headaches. Like not only the fact that you end up working much more than you expected, but also the uncomfortable conversations with the client about them not getting what they paid for. And then you're like, oh, okay, well, I'll like fix it. But then that's also awkward, and it's just like unnecessary.
Yeah, because you do want to keep the client. It's just like, it's basically just a misunderstanding / miscommunication in the beginning that kind of then just snowballs into maybe the client not being satisfied with your work just because the scope wasn't clear from the beginning.
Yeah.
So that's also something you can avoid by maybe revisiting your proposals and check, hey, what do they look like now? Is there something you could change right now, like adding more to the scope? Like if what we just told you right now seems familiar, then that's a good place to start. From what I'm seeing in the list, I think we basically covered everything to like look out for in your current system and in your current projects. And if there's like something that's where you notice that maybe I could change something there, or maybe it's like suboptimal, then it's a good place to revisit. It's always a good time at the start of the year, something we will do as well. And we really hope that you found something helpful here to implement into your kind of like tool set.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Never Went to Business School. Don't forget to follow us here on Spotify. And if you enjoy our content, check out our YouTube channel for more educational videos and subscribe to our newsletter on Substack.